Welcome back to my channel. First things first, the tea as always. The green rose. So today I have 3 stories for you. I've been doing some practices from the book called Becoming Supernatural, and I've been speaking to these very interesting people. Write them down on these little pieces of paper so I don't forget them. First story starts off with this woman who comes into the shop that I work at, and she was buying like pajamas for her son's girlfriend. At first I thought it was just going to be like one of those casual conversations. I don't know how we got onto this topic. I asked her, oh, what do you do for a living? So she said, oh, I am a cop therapist. And I was like, well, I did not expect that to happen. So I asked her a bit more. I was like, oh, what are the things that stand out for you? Because she's always at home and she helped the help. And she said, oh, well, there is a story that stands out for me, and it starts off when this, like, helping this cop go through his trauma. And that trauma, there was this civilian who put their foot out onto the street, wasn't looking, and some kind of vehicle took off his foot. And I was like, wow. And she's like, but that's not the most shocking bit. The reason why he went to her is because he can't get the smell out of his head. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. She goes on to explain that when it comes to the smell of like iron and blood, men react differently other than like women. And she has a theory that because we women, we always go through, you know, our time of the month, we don't really associate blood with, we associate with blood and life, unlike men who only associate blood with. And I found that to be very interesting. I mean, in large quantities that would be like, you know, shocking, but I guess because we always go through it every month and we are, you know, expected to, like, do we have children and stuff, we will, you know, inevitably face more blood. So we're not really that shocked by it. We're kind of familiar with the smell and the feeling because it happens every month, so it is completely normal. But when you think about it from a guy's perspective, it is very interesting because they don't go through it every month, so the only times they do associate with large quantities of it is when it's something major. So I do assume for guys it would be like very shocking for them, especially the smell, because the smell is not very like distinct. It smells like iron, but I bet it would smell completely different in large quantities. And especially in that line of field, it would definitely be more on the negative side. So that's very interesting to realize that men who do smell that stuff, they're still having trauma for months on end, unlike women who seem to like get past it. That's how we got on the topic of the book called The Body Keeps Score. I read that book a few weeks before meeting her. Coincidental that we started talking on it, because when I first started reading The Body Keeps Score, I thought it was just like a mental health book, but no, it's a book for therapists to help their patients. So it's more advanced and it's more potent. And one of the things that stood out in the book is different reactions, how people cope with certain traumas. And what I found distinct between women and men is that women with trauma, they will either learn how to cope with it and be able to be high functioning people in society. Unlike men who go through trauma, they don't really know how to process it as much. They usually act out of violence because that's the only way they know how to express what they're feeling, instead of sitting down and crying. And after reading that book, The Body Keeps Score, like I said to you, I thought my traumas were like, you know, 8 to 9. Turns out it's probably a 3, because you can go through insane amount of trauma, and especially for women who can go through insane amount of trauma and still function. But unlike There are some men who do function as well, but I guess it's different because women, like, we speak to each other, we openly go out into communities, express how we feel, and we're more likely to get help. Unlike men who are more, they rather angry, don't talk, and isolate themselves, which is actually very dangerous, but you know what, each to their own. The funny things that the cop therapist told me is that she always wanted to be a cop, but do psychology instead, and she's kind of glad that she went to psychology because the stories that she heard from the cops, she's like, oh my god. But the good thing she told me about is like, oh, because I work with cops all the time, I get to ride in the back of their car. And I was like, that's so cute. She kind of reminded me of like one of those little cats when they have like little helmets on the back of a motorcycle, because it's like, I don't know why you're there, but it's very cute because they're like, you know, you're part of the team. And I find it very sweet because I need help and the help is there to be like, yes. Another thing too that we talked about the association with blood with like women and men, I was like, oh, maybe it's because we associate blood with chocolate and they associate blood with death. We had a little giggle about that. So very delicious. It's like very calming and very like sweet at the same time. I believe it's called Green Rose. So the second story that I want to talk to you about today, it's called Fun Scrubs. She was, you know, buying herself pajamas, but she had very interesting scrubs on because she works in health. And I was like, oh, those are very interesting scrubs. And she's like, oh, thank you, it's Fun Scrub Day. Fun Scrubs are just like, you know, little animals and cute little pineapples on. So I thought, oh my god, that must be fun. So I asked her, oh, what do you do? And apparently she does something to do with like blood fusion, something in that zone. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And she looked very like bright and happy. And because I'm on my little self-development journey, I asked her, I'm like, oh, what are some life advice that you would give to your younger self? And she's like, oh, what do you want to know? And I said, I don't know, like any wisdom, because she seemed very light, she seems very happy, she seems like very free, and that's what attracted me to her. And she's like, oh, well, my life story was I used to work in retail for 8 years, and then I went overseas to teach English. Came back, she went to schooling again, and she wanted to be in nursing. And I was like, oh my god, like, oh, you must have lived a life. And she's like, yes, I have lived a life, a lot of hex debt. And I said to her, well, hex debt is good debt because when you die it doesn't go anywhere, so in a way that is good. After that, I asked her, what are some life lessons that you would give me? So she said to me, follow your passions. It doesn't matter where it leads, just follow it and just have fun with it. The second one she told me was to ask people their stories, and which I found interesting because like I was asking her story and she was telling me to ask other people their stories, because she was telling me her life story and where she is in her stage in life. She's like, all my friends are getting married or having houses, you're all thinking about kids. For me and stuff, after my contract ends at this hospital, I'm thinking about going overseas with my partner. And I thought like, oh my god, that is like so reassuring, because the people around me right now, they're settling down, like they're buying houses, they're doing what society says is right. Don't get me wrong, I think having kids, getting married is very like important, you know, more power towards you. Like, you mothers out there are the pillars of society. Good on you, keep going. But that's not my life. I also heard somewhere that says if you're getting married like early on in your life and having kids early on in your life, it means that you have nothing else going on in your life, which is like more power towards you if that is what you want to do. But it also puts things into perspective, especially at like such like a young age, before even frontal lobe develops, which is really like scary towards me, because apparently when you hit 25 for a woman, your frontal lobe fully develops, aka like your risk management, your knowledge and stuff. It's like very like, it's now fully developed. I go on about it, but I find it very fascinating, especially when I see younger people getting married before me, and I'm like, more power towards you, but at the same time and stuff, you still got 80 something years and you want to spend that already with that one person that you met in your early 20s, and I'm like, more power towards you, I'm happy for you, congratulations. The third advice that she gave me was, don't take life too seriously. At the end of the day, we are still on a floating rock. And I was like, that is so true, because at the end of the day, we are on a floating rock. Like, that doesn't make sense. The world works in mysterious ways. I really like this fun scrub lady. So reassuring to know that there are people out there who, they know it's okay to not have your life in order. It's okay to figure things out. It's okay to try new things, especially now when like we're still young. If you're a woman and if you don't have a boyfriend, kids or a house, and you're single and you're making your own money, you're basically the most dangerous like person in society, because that means like no one can control you. So seeing that woman like be so free in life and just being so full of energy and just like not tied down, because I have noticed the people who are married are kind of like, yeah. I mean, it must be nice having a partner with you who always supports and loves you, but at the same time I find like the single ladies they just seem pretty cool and chill and relaxed. I'm like, oh my god, like, don't get me wrong, some of them probably do get married in the future, but if not, they're just kind of chill. Third story that I want to speak to you guys today, it is the ballerina girls. So first of all, where I work at, it's very affluent, the area. So the people that I normally get are usually tourist people or people who are more retired but well off, so, and family orientated people. So the children around this area, they're not like the typical high schoolers where they're like rowdy, they're yelling. That you find here, they're very quiet, they're very like respectful, and they're very like chill individuals. Like sometimes like they're a little bit loud, but nothing compared to some other areas. So when I see these like kids who come into like the store I work at, I find it very interesting, because you can tell with their little uniforms, and one in particular uniform that I do see around but not enough. I only see them like every blue moon, but because around that area they also have boarding schools as well. So one day when I was like, you know, doing my little rounds, these two ladies walked into the shop and they were just like, you're looking at the pajamas. And I looked at their uniform. It's very nice, the uniform. It was very good. But I also found it kind of odd, because what they were wearing, they had tights on, but their tights were nude. So I asked them, oh, are those tights? So one of the young ladies turned to me, she's like, oh yes, they're ballerina tights. And I was like, oh my god, you do ballet? And she's like, yes, we do. Our school specializes in ballet. And I was like, oh my god, that's really fascinating. Like, I was like, you ladies must be very strong. Girls was like, yes, but the trick is to make it look effortlessly. So it's more so a mind game. So mind over body kind of matter. What other things do they teach at this ballet school? So the lady was like, oh, other than ballet, they teach us French. And I was like, ooh, French? Oh, can you speak French to me? And they're like, oh no, it's bits and pieces. So I'm guessing so that they understand French phrases, because, you know, like they're in a ballet school. So I'm assuming like they would do all like, you know, French phrases, French classes. And I was like, oh, that's really fascinating. Tell me more about this school, because I like learning about different schools, because I just found out every school is different. So when you ask someone, be like, oh, school, it's always very fascinating to hear like what makes them different, especially around this area. So I said, oh, what what else, like, tell me more about your school. And she's like, well, another thing about our school is that instead of having periods, we just have one whole day of lessons. And I thought that was very interesting, because I was like, oh, please tell me more, because I heard somewhere that when you're talking to someone and if you want to learn more, you just ask them more about it, but not in a like, oh, tell me everything, more so just like let them speak. Because the more you let them speak like about what they do and hobbies, the more you get out of it. And I was also very intrigued, and I was like, oh, that must be like very like interesting, like tell me more. And she's like, well, the classes that we have one day ballet, one day French, and then one day finances. And that caught my interest, because I heard from Rob Dial is like, when you speak to these said people, don't be like, you know, standoffish. Like, trust me, there was a little part of like inside of me that was like, oh my god, like they taught finances to like 15-year-olds at that age. Like, I was like, oh my god, like there was a part of me that's like a little bit envious. I was like, oh my god, like they teach like these kids actual finances in like high school for them. But I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna swallow like the little green goblin and ask them all. Instead of saying like, oh my god, like you must be very like rich, I just took a step back and I was like, you know what, you must be very clever. Not only did you work hard to get into this sense, like...
Okay, so I lost the last bit of the ballerina video, but here is a video of me going to Berrima and exploring the area. So the ladies go on to say that they learn about taxes in their school, and they investigate European businesses and learn to invest in them before presenting it to the class. They are a branch of another school, and they have about 30 people in their like grade, and 5 of them are boys. And what I've heard from them is that the boys are very strong, even though they don't look it. Most of all the students go to Europe to continue their careers. I said to the girls like, oh, your parents must be so proud of you. Like, have they always knew that you would go to this school? And apparently no. Like, one of the girls says like she practiced ballet ever since she was young, and throughout high school the classes were too easy for her, so somehow she got a letter of acceptance and she took it. I mean, good on her, she deserves it, especially when you think about the sacrifice, the motivation to wake up every single day, go on your tippy toes, basically break your feet for this beautiful dance that only has like a short lifespan. Only shows how much dedicated she is to the artwork, and she deserves all the opportunities that go her way. So when I told her this, she said, thank you, like I did work hard, and it's so refreshing to see a young lady own her power, because I'm pretty sure like she had some help along the way, but at the end of the day she did do the work, so it's the same thing. She also goes on to say that she has nothing against people her own age, it's just that she has different hobbies. And I agree with her, like, you know, everyone has their own hobbies, stuff, and I'm pretty sure when you're talking to people like that, like they will probably do the same, like watch the same movies, they'll probably go to the same shops as you, but their mindsets and like values and moralities will probably be different, like compared to someone who thinks, you know, texting a boy who is like, you know, not interested in her is like their number one priority, while these people are thinking long term, like into the future and the rest of their careers, which is like, what was I thinking when I was young? That just proves to you that people have different hobbies. If you don't like where you are and where the people are, then you should just make a change. Like, even if you have to go places by yourself, like that's what I'm doing right now. Like, I always wanted to go to these places, but the people that I hang out with, they don't really find it as a priority. So that's why I decided to, you know, just venture out, do something different.